Welcome to Tranceformation Talks, where we explore the world of hypnosis and its impact on mindset and mental health. I'm your host, Chal, trauma-informed rapid transformational therapist, clinical hypnotherapist, educator, and coach. As this podcast may feature powerful hypnosis in some episodes, please avoid listening to the hypnosis section of this recording while driving or operating machinery. You may come back to this section of the podcast when you're seated comfortably without any distractions or lying down. Hypnosis is not suitable for those with epilepsy, psychosis, or severe mental health issues. In each episode, I'll guide you through real-life client stories, sharing insights from my practice and experience. Whether you're curious about hypnosis or seeking personal growth, you're in the right place. So sit back, relax, and get ready to explore the potential of hypnosis for positive change. So let's get started.
Have you ever stopped and wondered, why do relationships make you so anxious? Not just this relationship, almost every relationship you've ever been in. Different people, different personalities, different careers, different cities, different ages, yet somehow the same anxiety comes up. The same overthinking, the same fear they'll lose interest, the same knot in your stomach when they don't text back, and the same promise you make to yourself that I'm not going to do this again. And then you start checking your phone. You read the message again, and you wonder whether the full stop at the end of the sentence means they're upset. And you also wonder why they suddenly put a kiss at the end of the message, or why they didn't. And you replay the conversation in your head. And then you even wonder if you came across as too much or not enough. And you start looking for evidence. Evidence they're pulling away. Evidence that they're losing interest. Evidence that they're going to leave. And what's interesting is that before the relationship, you weren't like this. You were confident, independent, funny, relaxed. Your friends would describe you as capable and confident. And your colleagues would probably say you're the one who gets everything done. And people rely on you, they trust you, they respect you. But somewhere along the way, the relationship becomes all-consuming. And your mood starts depending on their mood. Your day starts depending on whether they've texted, and your peace starts depending on whether everything feels okay between the two of you. And then one day you catch yourself thinking, who have I become? I've been thinking about this a lot lately because after years of sitting with people in my therapy room and over Zoom with clients around the world, I realized I'd been asking the wrong question. Different faces appear on my screen. Different voices, different lives, different stories, different cultures, ethnicities, yet somehow the same pain, the same tears, the same question. Julie, what's wrong with me? Years ago, I thought every client who came to me had a completely different problem. One would have anxious attachment, another would struggle with people-pleasing, another couldn't stop overthinking, another kept choosing emotionally unavailable partners, and another stayed in relationships that slowly destroyed their confidence and sense of self. Another would be terrified of being abandoned, and another couldn't leave a relationship even though they knew it was unhealthy and it was slowly breaking them down mentally, physically, and emotionally. Different problems, or so I thought. See, the funny thing is, I could relate to these stories because once upon a time, this was my story too. I kept choosing emotionally unavailable men. Different names, different jobs, different personalities, different backgrounds, but same type of relationship. I ignored things I shouldn't have ignored. I explained away behavior that should have never needed explaining. I tell myself, oh, he's just busy. Or maybe he's under a lot of stress. Or he's just scared of commitment. Maybe it's because he's been hurt before. And if I just love him a little better, maybe this one will be different. And it never was. And I remember lying awake one night asking myself, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I keep ending up here? Is there something wrong with me? And I genuinely believed that I was unlucky, that somehow I just met the wrong men. Until one day, I realized something that completely changed how I understood my own story. You see, my dad worked incredibly hard. I love my dad, and I always will. He sacrificed so much for our family. And this isn't about blaming him. It's about understanding me. That's the difference. Because while my adult brain understands exactly why he worked so hard, the little girl inside of me simply experienced someone she loved being busy, working, playing golf, not intentionally emotionally unavailable, just not always emotionally available. See, children don't sit there analyzing context. They don't think. That's providing for the family. They simply experience what they repeatedly experience. And without me ever realizing it, I learned something about love. Love feels distant. Love isn't always available. Love has to be waited for. Love has to be earned. I didn't consciously believe that, but unconsciously, I picked up on that belief. So years later, when emotionally unavailable men walked into my life, they didn't feel strange. They felt familiar to my nervous system. And familiarity is a powerful thing because familiarity often feels like chemistry. And not long after that realization, a woman appeared on my Zoom screen. She looked exhausted, not physically, emotionally. And she stared down at the floor for a long time before she finally whispered, Julie, I think there's something wrong with me. And then she laughed in an attempt to deflect from what she had just said. You're probably going to think I'm crazy. And I smiled. Because after all these years, I've learned that sentence usually means I'm about to tell you something I've never admitted to anyone else. And she said, every time he doesn't reply, I tell myself I'm not going to check my phone. But 5 minutes later, I'm checking it again. Then I hate myself for checking. Then I promise I won't do it again. And then I do. She looked at me and said, I know it's irrational. I know he hasn't actually done anything wrong. So why can't I stop? And then a few weeks later, another woman, this time from a different city. She has a different life, same tears. Julie, I keep choosing emotionally unavailable men. It's like I can see the red flags and I still stay. And then, a few weeks later, another woman. I need constant reassurance. If he's quiet, my mind tells me something is wrong. And then another. Every argument I have feels like the relationship is over. And then a man. He sat quietly for a while before saying, I don't know who I am anymore. Years of walking on eggshells, years of trying harder, giving more, making himself smaller, hoping that if he loved enough, if he gave enough, if he fixed enough, the relationship would finally become safe with his wife. Different stories, different people, different genders, different lives, and every single one of them looked at me with the same question in their eyes. What's wrong with me? Underneath every story, I kept hearing exactly the same fear. Not I'm scared of losing him, something deeper. Something people weren't even saying out loud. If this relationship ends, what does that say about me? Think about that, because that's very different. The relationship wasn't just a relationship anymore. It had become evidence. Evidence that you were lovable or not lovable, enough or not enough, safe or unsafe, chosen or rejected. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it, because suddenly checking your phone wasn't really about your phone. It was about what no reply meant. Wanting reassurance wasn't really about reassurance. It was about what silence meant. Ignoring red flags wasn't about being stupid. It was about what walking away meant. Leaving the relationship meant risking the possibility that every fear you carried about yourself might actually be true. So you stayed. Not because you were weak, because your nervous system was trying to protect you. I even remember one client saying something I'll never forget. She looked at me and said, "Julie, I don't even know who I am anymore." And I don't think she realized what she just said. Because that's what anxiety does. It slowly pulls you away from yourself, one compromise at a time, one excuse at a time, one ignored red flag at a time, one apology you didn't owe at a time. Until one day you wake up and you're no longer asking, do I like this relationship? You're asking, does this relationship still like me? And that's a very different life. Can I tell you the part that breaks my heart the most? Almost every one of these clients thought they had a relationship problem. But I didn't. I saw someone who had learned very early in life that love required something from them. Be quieter, be easier. Don't ask for too much. Don't upset people. Don't be needy. Don't take up too much space. Achieve more, give more, love harder, wait longer, prove yourself, earn it. You see, children are incredibly intelligent. They adapt. If keeping the peace made home feel safer, they became people pleasers. If achieving got them noticed, they became high achievers. If never needing anyone stopped them getting hurt, they became hyper-independent. And if being perfect reduced criticism, they became perfectionists. Those weren't personality traits. They were brilliant survival strategies until adulthood. Because what protected you at 8 may be the very thing that's keeping you stuck at 38 or 48 or 68. But here's one sentence that changed everything for me. We don't repeat what hurts us. We repeat what feels familiar. Because you weren't chasing a person. You were chasing a feeling your nervous system mistook for love. And we don't repeat what hurts us. We repeat what feels familiar. And that's why someone can spend years saying, I never want another relationship like that, and somehow end up there again. Not because they're broken, not because they're stupid, not because they enjoy suffering. Because their nervous system quietly whispers, I've been here before. And familiarity feels safer than the unknown, even when familiarity hurts. And that's why healthy love can feel strange. Healthy love doesn't keep you guessing. Healthy love doesn't make you earn basic respect. Healthy love doesn't leave you wondering where you stand. And if that feels uncomfortable, it's not because you're broken. It simply means your nervous system may have learned a very different definition of love. People often ask me, can people really change? And after all the clients I've worked with, my answer is always the same. Yes, because I've watched it happen. I've watched people who couldn't stop checking their phone stop checking. I've watched people who spent years chasing emotionally unavailable partners begin choosing emotionally available ones. I've witnessed people who were terrified of being abandoned become the one who confidently walked away from unhealthy relationships. Not because they forced themselves to, because they no longer operated from that old pattern. And that's very different. You don't heal by trying harder. You heal when the old survival strategy is no longer necessary. And if you've listened to this episode and somewhere along the way you've thought, she's talking about me, I want you to know something. You're not needy. You're not too much. You're not broken. Your anxiety makes sense. It always made sense. You just haven't understood the story it's been trying to tell you. And that's exactly the work I do. Whether someone walks into my therapy room here in Perth or joins me over Zoom from somewhere else in the world, we're not just talking about anxiety. We're uncovering why your brain and your nervous system learned to respond this way. What experiences taught it this pattern? What had it been trying to protect you from? And helping the part of you that believes it needs this anxiety realize it doesn't have to keep protecting you in the same way anymore. Because when the pattern changes, your relationships change. Your confidence changes. Your boundaries change. And the way you see yourself changes. Your life changes. Not because you became someone different, because you finally stopped abandoning the person you already were. If today's episode felt like someone had finally put words to what you've been living, don't ignore that feeling. It might be the first step towards changing it. And if you've spent years wondering why relationships leave you anxious, exhausted, and questioning your worth, the problem was never that you loved too much. You've simply been repeating a pattern your nervous system learned a long time ago. And you don't have to figure that out alone. Every week, I sit with people in my therapy room here in Perth and over Zoom with clients around the world who are asking the same question you might be asking right now. Why do I keep ending up here? And together we find the answer. And if you're ready to stop repeating the same relationship with a different person, then book a consultation call. The link is in the show notes, and I'd love to help you write a different ending.
Thank you for tuning into Transformation Talks. If you've enjoyed this show, please tap the follow button and share it with someone who may benefit from it. Your support means the world to me. If this podcast has helped you in any way, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave a review in the show notes. Lastly, if any of these episodes have resonated with you and you'd like support, please book a connection call with me. The link is in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.